Hello, my name is Tia, and today me and my partner are going to be talking about voter registration. It is important to know why we do this voter registration. It is a requirement that a person otherwise eligible to vote must register on an electoral roll before they will be entitled or permitted to even vote. The rules registration may vary between jurisdictions. You can pre-register at 16 or 17. When you become old enough, your local election office will move you from the list of pre-registrants to the list of registered voters. You can register online, by mail, or even in person. On election day, that's where you go. When you get there, you may need to show an ID to vote, then fill out your ballot. If you don't know how, ask a poll worker. If you know you won't be able to get there on election day, you may qualify to vote by mail. Apply to receive a ballot in the mail. All registered voters will receive the postcard-sized application in the mail around July 15th. Once your application is mailed back, you look for a ballot in your mailbox in August. Fill out your ballot and return it to the provided postage prepaid envelope or hand deliver it to your local clerk's office. Some locations may also have drop boxes. Ballots must be received by 8 p.m. on September 1st. Enrollment may be automatic or may require an application being made by the eligible voters that require governing registrations. Between jurisdictions and others do not require registrations or may require production or even when entitlement to vote a time of voting in some jurisdictions. Bibles of voting age is mandatory while it is optional when voting.
Hello, I'm Phillip, and on the topic of voter registration and turnout, you might ask, why is this so important for me? Well, for starters, we live in a country like the United States, where we are all given an opportunity to participate in a democracy. That means it is our responsibility to elect officials who we agree with their beliefs. Your vote holds importance on all three levels of government, from the federal to the state to the local, which shows that every United States citizen holds power and can use it to create the change they want for themselves as well as the community. You might be saying, my vote doesn't matter, but it really does. Imagine if half of the population of this country thought that way. There are approximately 100 million registered voters, and if 50 million didn't vote because they thought it really didn't matter, then all that power to change would be given to the other 50 million, leaving those who didn't vote to be forced to accept the candidate into office, whether they agree with their beliefs or not. This can apply for electing governors of states or even mayors of a city. When people think their vote is insignificant, they're essentially giving up their power to those who do vote by allowing them to choose for them. Now, if you're still insistent on the idea that your vote doesn't matter, think about the city or town that you live in and how small the population is compared to your state or country. When you take that into consideration, it's clear that local officials can influence a community greater than a governor or president. Your vote can literally decide how people can either benefit or manipulate your community. Here, Tia will go into more detail on New Bedford statistics itself.
Hey, it's T again. To continue on where Phillip left off, since the project was aimed at increasing voter registration and voter turnout specifically in the city of New Bedford, I believe that it is also important to go over the facts and statistics of what the voting situation is like here in New Bedford. Firstly, let's go back to the election results of the 2016 presidential election. Remember what Phillip had said about half of the population voting? This election is a true example of his explanation. In 2016, the city had a total of 57,615 registered voters, yet only 33,539 of those people had actually voted. That's only 58% of people going out to vote for who was going to be our next president. Not only that is underwhelming for a city like New Bedford, but it also shows that it is a problem that we cannot turn a blind eye to. Let's move a year forward into 2017, more specifically the mayoral election between John Mitchell and Charlie Perry. According to New Bedford's official website, there were 56,237 voters, which was a decrease from the year before. Out of that number, only 14,098 had voted for our own mayor, which accounts for 25%. These numbers indicate that there really isn't an interest in local politics compared to the national politics, which is an issue that needs an immediate solution because it is unjust to have only 25% of New Bedford's voter population to decide who becomes mayor. Now, on to the most recent mayoral election taking place in 2019. It was between John Mitchell and Richard Moultrie, which was by far the election that had seen the worst voter turnout. While the numbers of registered voters were not provided that year, only 9,785 people had voted during that election. Assuming the amount of registered voters had stayed the same, around 55,000 people, that would only mean 17% of voters had participated. As you see, throughout the years, the voter turnout and registration is on the decline. Many factors could be identified for this problem, such as the increasing amounts of convicted felons, decreasing voter registration, or the emerge of a generation that doesn't have an interest in voters, which could affect voter turnout. What I'm saying is that this is a major problem affecting New Bedford that needs a solution, which Phillip will talk about.
Phillip here. After hearing what Tia had to say about voter registration and voter turnout, it is important to consider how we can solve this increasingly apparent problem for the city of New Bedford. After thorough research on the issue, I have identified many articles and videos that seem to point to the fact that there is not a single solution that can solve the low voter registration, but rather a series of steps we can take to overcome it. The first course of action that we must take is to increase funding to solve this apparent problem. This problem cannot be easily solved because it has affected this entire city, which is simply a task that cannot be done without proper funding by the city or other parties. With increased funding, we can direct it into gathering educational resources that inform people who are not yet registered to vote to actually register and go out to vote. According to an article released under Stanford, one of the main reasons for low voter turnout would be an underrepresentation of certain demographics. It was proven that certain demographics, such as younger people or those who have a lower income, are less likely to vote because they are simply unaware of the policies that certain politicians are advocating for or are uninterested in participating. If we can dedicate some effort into creating some sort of pamphlet detailing the platforms that certain candidates are fighting for on election day and send them to residents of New Bedford through the mail, it could establish something voters can base their votes on, which could potentially increase voter turnout on upcoming elections. In regards to voter registration, a potential solution for this issue would be to target the youth through holding voter registration campaigns in places such as schools and other public places that see a great concentration of youth. As mentioned earlier, youth are less likely to participate in voting, but if introduced to it, they may be more encouraged to participate and are more inclined to make a positive impact on their local community by electing officials who stand by their beliefs. This initiative has already been done by a city called Tulsa in Oklahoma, who had seen enormous amounts of success in campaigns like these. Daniel Reagan, a resident of the city, speaks in a TED Talk highlighting the importance of this initiative by emphasizing these important steps, which are to show the low threshold for impact, related to something that they care about, lower barriers to participate, and to make it fun. This action was proven to be effective at a local level, which shows that something the city of New Bedford can begin at increasing voter turnout and registration. While these solutions may be insignificant in bringing the change that we need now, it is the necessary beginning steps that must be taken in order to begin our journey in making this city a one with a community that is actively engaged in the local affairs of New Bedford. Thank you.